like you said, you don't use what you learned in the programs, but you learn the skill set that you developed during those programs. The difference is today you don't stop learning when you leave school, right? So I'm sure you spend a great deal of time reading, and because things are moving so quickly, technology
Yeah.
is moving so fast. Everything is happening at a faster and faster rate, and so most executives, scientists, engineers have to stay on top of things as time goes on, right? So the learning doesn't end at school.
Welcome to the Break Free podcast. I am your host, David Vancella. Today we have with us a great leader that is actually changing this world for a better place with everything he's doing, Raj Das Gupta. Brother, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, David. Pleasure to be here today.
So, Raj, I know I asked you how you pronounce your name because I'm the worst with pronouncing names. I'm actually an immigrant of Canada, so my first language is Spanish. But even in the Spanish world, it's hard for me to pronounce names. So, can you tell me your full name, exactly how you actually say it? Where do you live and what do you do for a living?
It's just Raj Das Gupta, and I live in Oakville, Ontario. Grew up in Toronto and lived here and there, but came back. And currently, I'm the chief executive officer at Electrovaya.
Electrovaya. And what do you guys do at Electrovaya?
Electrovaya is a cool company, actually. So Electrovaya makes lithium-ion batteries, but we focus on lithium-ion batteries for heavy-duty vehicles and other types of heavy-duty applications. So we make sort of a specialized lithium-ion battery, which gets much longer life. So I'm sure you and your listeners are all aware that your cell phone will last about 2 years, give or take. And you charge that every day. So you do one cycle on that phone battery per day. So that's 2 years, 700 cycles. The batteries that Electrovaya specializes in, we make lithium-ion batteries that will cycle 10,000 cycles or more. So,
Wow.
So much longer life lithium-ion batteries. And we're using those batteries in applications which really need it, right? So not your passenger electric vehicles. I drive one. Those need maybe one cycle a week. We're talking about robots that are operating in warehouses, forklifts, which are operating in warehouses when you order things online, things like that. These are vehicles that are operating 24 hours per day. We're also looking at things like electric transit buses operating maybe 16 hours per day, or mining vehicles operating over 20 hours per day. So heavy duty electrification applications. And the business is, that's the right focus for our technology, and the business is ramping up as this movement is accelerating.
It's incredible that I didn't even know that you had different types of electric batteries. I mean, I know, like, with the evolution of the zero emission cars, Elon Musk and his team has done tremendous, advancements on the car batteries. But I didn't know that batteries existed where you have 10,000 cycles. That's incredible.
It's a mind-boggling number when you think about it. Like if you think about it, if you put that battery in a passenger electric car, you would do over 3.5 million miles on that car before the battery was done. So
Wow.
no one's going to do 3.5 million miles on their car, but that gives you an idea. So, but yeah, lithium-ion batteries, people don't think about it, but it's sort of lithium-ion batteries is an overarching, like, it's a huge group of battery chemistries and flavors that are in there. It's almost like ice cream. Say you like ice cream or you eat ice cream, but there's like many different types of ice cream. So lithium-ion batteries are similarly have lots of different chemistries, lots of different flavors. Electrovaya has IP around a certain element of it, which is very good for these types of applications.
That is amazing. Now, do you guys invented this technology, or how did the company evolve?
I would say we did invent this technology. It's with all technologies, it's a marriage of individual technologies, right? So we had through a subsidiary company had come across this ceramic separator technology, and the ceramic separator fundamentally makes your lithium-ion battery safer. So if you're going back to your cell phone analogy, your cell phone battery works well. It's got a plus and a minus electrode inside there. And in between that is what you call a separator, which keeps your electrodes from touching one another, but also allows the lithium ions to go through it. So this is how all batteries typically have a separator. The separator that you have in your phone is a polymer material, which works fine, except if it gets too hot. And if it gets too hot, it will shrink. And that shrinking will obviously lead to the plus and minus now touching one another, and that can lead to really terrible things like battery fires. With this ceramic separator technology of ours, we get it's stable at high temperatures. It fundamentally makes our lithium-ion batteries very safe, because even if they get too hot, the separator is going to remain intact. So we leveraged that technology, which initially just made the batteries much safer, which is very valuable on its own right. But we leveraged that technology by using new chemistries, which could work with ceramics, changing the way you made the cells, etc. And the end result was we increased the cycle life of the lithium-ion cell by about a factor 4 to 5. So huge benefit with combining some of these new technologies.
That is incredible. And that's what it is, right? Like, that's why they call it research and development, right? I truly believe we don't invent things, we discover things and we make it work for our own purpose, right? So your other company, so your sister company, was the spinning idea to generate this new business, or how did it work?
So they came up with the ceramic separator, and we came out with putting it all together.
Right. So you saw the business opportunity there.
But Electrovaya as a whole owns all the IP on this technology, and it's a very exciting technology. I mean, we're now calling it the infinity battery because it just goes on forever, seemingly. Right?
That's incredible, right? Like, one of the reasons why I didn't buy a Tesla, for example, is they told me after 8 years I have to replace the battery.
Exactly, right? So the battery is everything when it comes to an electrified vehicle. Most of the value is in the battery. Most of the performance is coming from the battery. So you're seeing a change where it may have been the engine before that defined a vehicle or defined a bus or a truck or anything like this. And now it's all about the battery.
It's all about the battery. And Raj, now tell me, how did somebody, and I said that before, and I'm not flattering you, it's just you look very young. You look like you are 29 years old. I'm like, how can a young person be responsible for such an important company? I bet, like, because you're business to business, none of the world knows about you, but you are, like, the value that you're adding to the world is tremendous, because you're actually helping change the way we operate with the new emerging technologies, right? How did you get there? How was your trajectory? So let's look back in time, Raj. Where were you in high school, and what did you decide to do with your life after high school?
Oh, great question. So, first of all, I'm not in my 20s, I'm in my 40s, but I'll take that. But high school, high school is still fresh in mind, even when you're my age. So, when I was in high school, I really enjoyed a wide variety of subjects. So I was obviously pretty good at math and science, so those were my best marks. But I was also very good at history and creative writing. So I was unsure what I wanted to do when I went into university. I ended up deciding to do engineering, thinking that after that I could could do something else if I wanted to. So I went to engineering school at a university called Imperial College, which is in London. A lot of my family are from the UK, and my sister was at the time studying at Oxford. So I went to Imperial.
Oh, I thought you were saying London, Ontario. You went to London, England.
London, England. Yeah, Imperial College is it's the so it's a pretty well-known engineering school in Europe, right? So
Mhm.
they all they do is engineering, science, and they have a medical program too. So I was there, and at the time, I again unsure what I wanted to do afterwards. Was lucky enough to get a placement one summer at MIT, which is MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology. And so when I was there, I really was enjoying research. So we were working, this is 2003, and we were working on a solid state battery back then at MIT, which had a polymer solid separator, today solid state batteries are a big deal. So this is 20 years ago. And so after I had a taste of pure research, I really liked it. So I applied to grad school after I finished at Imperial, and I applied to MIT, of course, and as well as Cambridge University. And again, so I was lucky enough. I did reasonably well in university. I got accepted at multiple schools. I chose to go to MIT for their PhD program. Then I found I was extremely young in that PhD program. I was about 20, I was 21, yeah. And MIT it was a difficult school. The research I was doing when I was there for the summer, and what I ended up having to do for my PhD research, it depends on who's funding the project, and it turned out a different funding mechanism came in. End of the day, I started my work was on, believe it or not, the objective was to make oxygen on the moon.
Hmm.
So the objective was to take moon rock, use a molten salt process, and make iron and oxygen out of moon rock.
Did it work?
Well, we were getting somewhere making the iron for sure. I thought about it. I was like, what am I gonna do after I finish this? Who's gonna this I'm gonna spend 6 years working on this particular project I wasn't too excited about. So I ended up reaching out to the professor at Cambridge who had a battery related project, which is what I wanted to do. So I ended up moving back to University of Cambridge, where I finished my PhD. And we did something quite exciting, making I'm getting technical here, but the project
It's
was
good. I love it. Don't worry. I mean, like, I'm a technical geek.
so instead of the MIT project was actually funded by NASA. It was quite cool, right? The moon rock. But at Cambridge, this was to make tin-filled carbon nanotubes for lithium-ion batteries. So the idea is, in a typical lithium-ion battery, going back to your phone, because all your listeners have lithium-ion batteries on them, that phone battery has graphite as one of the electrodes. So the lithium goes from the oxide into the graphite and goes back and forth. If you replace that graphite with tin or silicon, you can store a lot more lithium in those materials than graphite. So you can increase the energy density significantly. So this is 2005, and we worked on this. We got it to work reasonably well. We made some cells out of it. So we filled very, very, very small carbon nanotubes with tin and made electrodes out of it. Ultimately, it was too expensive, too complicated to really be commercialized, but it was exciting. So after that, I joined Electrovaya, so 2009. And my father and very good family friend had co-founded Electrovaya. So there is a connection there. And fundamentally, that's why I came back. Otherwise, I probably would have stayed in the UK. And then I worked at Electrovaya, 15 years ago, various hats over the years. Started in research, built big batteries for energy storage. I ran business development for a number of years, and then a couple of years of operations, and then most recently, about a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago, I took over as CEO. So I've shrunk the Electrovaya history quite. That's how so I have as you can tell, I have a very technical background, and that's what you need in this space, right? I'm leading a high-tech chemistry-based business, and I think that puts me in a good position to understand what we do. And because I had this also fairly substantial experience in selling the goods, right? So as a business development lead, I created a lot of the relationships that we rely on today for the business to make money. So sort of a combination of.
So that's one of the most important questions for you, because something similar happened to me. So I was a software engineer that became a very senior architect, that became a leader in the corporate world. And then I decided to open my own business in software technologies. But I still was a software engineer and a very good architect. And I was a very good leader, but I was not a salesperson. I was not a marketing person. I didn't have that business acumen. I was blessed because when I went to college, my grandfather was a chartered accountant, and he told me, despite that you want to become a commercial software developer, since you're in college, take as many accounting courses as you can, because you're going to face that if you want to write software for the business. So I took like 6-7 different accounting courses over and above. Like it almost like if they had a minor in accounting, I would have had a minor in accounting in my title,
Mm-hmm.
So that helped me a lot on the administration side. Of course, when I was explaining to the potential client what I could do, I was shining because I was acting like a sales engineer. But actually getting the leads, getting in front of the potential clients, the first conversations, they were terrifying for me. And it took me about 5 to 10 years to master and conquer that part of my life as an entrepreneur. So you are one of the first persons that I interview, Raj, that have a similar background to me in that regard. Because most entrepreneurs, they come from sales, they come from an MBA, they come from the business world. Or if they didn't go to school, they come from street smarts on how to actually communicate and how to become exceptional at getting new clients. How do you manage that being so technical, Raj? Like how do you get into sales to begin with?
So David, I think you're, the way you described yourself there, it's very similar, and it's a rare breed, honestly. In today's world, more and more industries are highly technical, and highly technical people often are not good at explaining what the product is, or what they do, or why you want it. And the people who can sort of bridge that, understand both the technical side and are able to articulate why it's important to someone else. I think that's going to be a skill set that is already important, but it's going to become more important as our world becomes more and more complicated. So this is why Elon Musk has done a terrific. We all know what he's done, but he's a highly technical individual who's managed to explain and get people interested in this tech who may not understand it as well. And I think that's an incredibly important skill set that people need to have, especially as they lead more complicated tech businesses. And I'm not saying I'm perfect at it, but I think I am reasonably good at explaining, making things appear more simple.
That is amazing. Did you get any advice from leadership that you should actually get into sales if you ever wanted to become the CEO of this great business, or was it something inherited out of yourself?
No, I didn't envision necessarily myself in this position even five years ago. My object, as when I was running business development, the objective was to get get the company business for their technology, right? And it was I was in charge of that at a very difficult point in time. For this business at Electrovaya was in dire straits around 2017, 2018. We were essentially our we had operations in Germany and they were hemorrhaging cash and we were losing lots of money. We were basically on near bankruptcy at that time. And so it was a period where we were just developing this interesting technology. The marketplace was potentially interested in it, but they would look at the company and say, "Oh, you're not going to be around in a year's time, so why would I buy your product?" So it was a very difficult time to get sales, and at that time we won a deal with Walmart Canada. To get them to buy our batteries for their material handling vehicles. That saved the company. So the being able to, first of all, have the technology, articulate the technology to the why it makes sense for the customer, and then articulate why this business is going to be prosperous, strong business to support this customer over a long term. That was a difficult balancing act, especially back then. It's getting easier as every day goes by and the company becomes stronger. But this is something entrepreneurs have to do. They often, especially at the early days of their business, or when their business is entering a period that business schools often refer to as the valley of death, right? A period where you have to cross that chasm into becoming a successful business. That's when these wins, these sales, these relationships on the sales side are so important. And I was there for that period, and I would say that was probably at the time the most important role in the company.
When you think about facing bankruptcy and you're in a business that you feel responsible for, I think it's a rite of passage for a lot of entrepreneurs. I have at least 2-3 times in my career I had to face that, where I'm like, I don't know where payroll is going to come next month.
Mm-hmm.
When you have exhausted everything and you figure out a way, and that's where faith comes in. But also gives you this tremendous energy that that because you have survived that, you will be okay. Regardless of what happens, you are going to figure it out, right? I feel the sense of confidence in you, and now I know why, because you already had gone through a situation like that where either you sell or you die.
I wouldn't recommend the experience for anyone, but it's transformational, as you mentioned, David. So once you have, it gives you, it's like being, it's an experience that is so valuable as an entrepreneur, and most entrepreneurs are going to have to face something like this. Most,
Mhm.
you look at startups, most startups don't succeed. But even if you've started a company and it's failed, that experience in itself of failure is incredibly valuable. So
I remember listening to a podcast where somebody was asking this business guru if they should invest $100,000 in an MBA, or they should just go right away and start their first company. And he said, you should get the $100,000 and start your first company and fail and lose the money, because that will give you a way greater experience than having an MBA.
Very, very good point. I would tend to agree, I think. Yeah.
Right? Don't get me wrong, having an MBA is the best thing in the world. I don't have one, but I should have a lot of business failures.
Yeah. School of hard knocks, as they call it, right? Yeah.
Right. Now, regarding education, though, I do believe that there is a misconception that people don't have to go to school anymore. And I think that's a huge lie, because it really depends on the life path of the person. Yes, you can become an incredible, successful entrepreneur without going to university. I actually interviewed somebody yesterday that, he took a company from 100 people to 1,000 people in 5 years. And he has done that with several companies, and he never went to university. Having said that, though, if you are in the technology field, if you are in the leading edge, it serves a lot to go to school. Like if I went to college in the 90s. If I didn't go to college, I wouldn't be where I am right now, because back then you wouldn't have the information that you have right now available to you. Plus the discipline. And what I find from the higher education is that it's not really about what you learn, because when you go to your first job, you realize that you know nothing. You just had the discipline to research, to teach yourself, and also the business acumen to go outside and do what is needed to do in the marketplace, isn't it?
Oh, I completely agree. Yeah, like you said, you don't use what you learned in programs, but you learn the skill set that you developed during those programs. The difference is today you don't stop learning when you leave school, right? So I'm sure you spend a great deal of time reading, and because things are moving so quickly, technology is moving so fast. Everything is happening at a faster and faster rate. And so most executives, scientists, engineers have to stay on top of things as time goes on, right? So the learning doesn't end at school. But I completely agree with you on what school is good for. Like, for instance, I have a PhD, and I've actually hired a lot of people. A lot of my close associates also have PhDs. And the reason, and people will sometimes ask me, oh, why aren't you hiring more people with MBAs or for these roles? And a PhD is an interesting program because a great percentage of those programs, you're on your own.
Mm-hmm.
It's, in undergraduate engineering programs, you get coursework, then you get tested on that coursework, and that's sort of how school is designed. A PhD program, you've got to do a significant research piece all by yourself with some guidance from a supervisor. And that process of putting something together by yourself over that has to be cutting edge, novel, all these things, is makes for an individual that can handle things by themselves with less guidance and can come up with something on their own. And that's what we like at Electrovaya. We like people who can be independent, can come up with things and trust themselves rather than. Depends on the company, but that's a program that is an interesting one for developing an interesting skill set.
Raj, what advice would you give yourself when you were 25 years old? If you had a time machine and you could go back and talk to yourself, what advice would you give yourself?
So when I was 25, I was just finishing my PhD. If I had to advise myself, I would have advised myself to stay in school longer because it was such a fun period of life.
Really?
Or work a little later, because I'll be working until I'm probably 80 years old, right? So if I was to advise young people, I would say enjoy being young a little longer.
You're right. I actually didn't do that. The first time I went to computer science, I actually got out at 19 years old, and then came to Canada, got another degree right away, When I was 25, I started my first business. I got married at 17. I had a baby at 18. I didn't really have like that life experience to enjoy university. And all of my kids did it. I mean, my older daughter, she was more like me, but my other two younger kids actually enjoyed their youth. But that's a great advice, Raj, because to your point, you're gonna work until you die, not because you have to, because you'll realize that if you land in the place where God made you to be, you are going to enjoy that so much that you're gonna go from it's like me, like I'm gonna go from my office to the grave, you know.
I think people, especially the younger generations, it's going to be different. So, but
Now,
it sounded like you did things much faster than I did. So,
yeah, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you is enjoy is with enjoyment. I mean, like when you push yourself so fast, you miss out in life things that you will never be able to experience, right?
mhm.
For example, when I was going through school, because I was already a mature student, I mean, I started at 23 here in Canada, and at 21, you're graduating from university, right? 22. I started at 23. So, I went through school while I was sustaining a full-time job, and I was going through school full-time because I had a family to support.
Yeah. So,
So while my friends were organizing frat parties, I was trying to get in another course to finish my degree faster. Right? So it's like that, and every life is different. Would I go back and do it differently? Probably wouldn't. I mean, like I have so many beautiful lessons out of it. Talking about life though and hardship, what has been the greatest problem that you have ever experienced in your business life, and how you were able to get out of it?
well, the hardest period in my career was that period I described earlier. So that so we had this operation in Germany, which was a very large battery plant. Today, if we had that battery plant, it would be fully booked. Um, it would be, but it was not like that. So 2017, we were struggling to find customers. In the German facility was unionized, so it was very inflexible, and a lot of great technology. But if you're losing money, it doesn't matter, right? So that was a very difficult period for me and the company and my family, because we were watching this business look like it was going to fail, and we were doing everything possible to keep it afloat. Um, and my father really put everything he had into it at the time. So it was definitely a stressful couple of years. Um, and a lot of people would ask me, you've got a pretty good resume. You could do anything right now. Why are you sticking with this? And no, driven by loyalty, driven by family, driven by wanting this business to succeed. And I'm proud to say we did turn it around. So, um, but most definitely those years were very difficult.
Were you married at the time or not?
I was married, so I got married in 2015. I have a very supportive wife who's also Spanish, and so having that support structure. If you don't have it, I think entrepreneurs would really struggle. If you don't have a supportive friendship, marriage, family in general, it's very difficult to be an entrepreneur. I think for
Mm.
every entrepreneur, there's probably a pretty strong support structure
Yeah.
around them.
I feel the same way, Raj. When people look at me, they say how successful you are. What they're looking at is the support that I got from my wife. I mean, like if I didn't have her in my life, I would probably be dead already, literally dead.
Mhm.
And every time that everything got wrong, like the life thrown back at me, I had support in my house. And it's so important. And I know a couple of entrepreneurs that are very successful that are single still. But if you were to ask them, they are successful, but there's always missing something in their life, and it's because they don't have the family structure, right? It's
It's
so important.
so important, and it doesn't get mentioned enough, probably.
No, nobody talks about that.
People are talking about
Nobody.
entrepreneurs are just talking about the individual, and they forget everyone around them.
Yeah. Raj, what's in the future for you guys? What are your objectives? What do you want to be 5 years from now?
Our business is doing well. So we this 2023 has been a every year is a transitional year, but this has been a very much so a transitional year. So we listed on NASDAQ. We grew our revenue by more than 2 times. We transitioned to being a profitable company, or at least last 3 quarters. And so looking forward, we're looking to grow this business significantly. So we the focus on heavy duty applications has been successful. So if I was to advise entrepreneurs in general, find an area to focus on.
Yeah.
You can't do everything. Let's say and that focus paid off, right? So we focused all efforts on, we ignored inquiries, X company wants a battery. No, we're just focusing on this application until it's successful, and then we'll look at the next one. So that material handling focus has become very successful. We're partnered with the largest OEM or in the space. And now looking forward, we're looking at different verticals, different applications.
Now you can expand.
My focus, our team's focus, well, continuing the material handling business, and that's expanding on its own. We're looking to get into electric transit buses. We're looking to get into electrified mining equipment. We're also looking to expand our capacity to supply these batteries. So we're building a very large plant in New York State. Our center of gravity, our investments are going to be very large in the United States, and the future looks bright.
That's beautiful. Just the fact that you actually went publicly traded, that's a huge, achievement. Congratulations on that. The only experience I have with that is that I was an angel investor in a tech company. I had 30% of the shares before we went into the stock market, but I didn't do anything. I was just my team was actually building the tech, and the other partners took it to the stock market, and that took like 4 years of hard work. So I know what you went through, and it probably was even more complicated than us because we had a software product. You guys have a battery making company. That must have been very hard.
It doesn't end though. You still have to do it. It's a process, but I can't thank enough our team, right? So the team, like you just mentioned, your team did a lot of the heavy lifting. I was involved, but we built up a very strong, talented team here at Electrovaya. So we went from about 50 employees 60 employees when I started being CEO. We're about 100 today. I've surrounded myself with very smart, capable individuals. So that makes life easier.
That's wonderful. Raj, thank you so much for your time. It's incredible that 40 minutes went by so fast. I would like to respect that time. I know you're a super busy professional. One last question before we end the podcast. If you had access to a billboard in front of the busiest highway on earth, what would you write on it?
Let's save the planet. I was very happy to see, I'm an environmentalist fundamentally, and that is a driving force in my life in general. I'm vegetarian. I've driven electric cars the last 10 years, and the planet is in dire straits right now. And I'm happy to see people are waking up to do something about it. The COP20, the recent meeting in Dubai led to some good statements, at least. but we can always do more. So we only have one planet. It's there for our kids and our grandkids, and that's what we should be working towards. If you're looking for a purpose in life, there's nothing better than looking after planet Earth.
Well, what you're doing is ensuring that your offspring will have a decent place to live, right? And I don't know about you, but I'm not trusting too much the whole Mars project with Elon Musk.
No, we got to take care of this planet.
I think going to the Sahara Desert is a nicer environment than being in Mars, you know?
I read my son's very into planets, and I read to him about Mars and different, Earth is much better. So,
Raj, thank you so much. If people would like to learn more about you and your company, where can they find you online?
we have our website, electrovaya.com, and then you can also follow me on LinkedIn. I don't do too much, but I'm there.
Wonderful. Raj, thank you so much for your time. God bless you and have a beautiful Christmas holiday if I don't see you later.
Thank you so much, David. Happy holidays.
That's all for today's episode of the Break Free Podcast. Head on over to iTunes and subscribe to the show. Starting your own business can be tough, but it doesn't have to be. Visit davidmansilla.com to pick up a copy of the #1 international best-selling book, Breaking Out of Corporate Jail. Expand what you consider to be possible and reach your full potential. And join us on the next episode.